Hey, yesterday was Memorial Day weekend here, and I hope everybody had a great time. It got me thinking, oddly enough, about World War II and England specifically being an island and how most of their supplies were brought in on boat, and having the U-boats in the channel really cut them off, and rationing quickly became a way of life. 60% of their food was being brought in by boat, and with the U-boats, that stopped. So I thought this episode would be kind of interesting about war rations. So if you're interested, follow along. Let's see where it goes. I want to take you back to a period of time, September of 1939. I want you to imagine for a moment, Germany has just invaded Poland, and France and England have united and declared war on Germany. Some facts to consider. 60% of the food was being brought in by boat to England, okay? And when the U-boats came around and surrounded the island, that stopped, okay? And in September of 39 to May of 1940, everybody got anxious. You know, we're at war again with the Germans. After World War I, everybody was really on edge about this. And nothing happened. It kind of fizzled out. And it wasn't until June of 1940 that the war began. And it really began. And with 2020 hindsight and the stuff that we're going to be discussing here in a moment, you're going to realize there were things that these people should have been preparing for. Remember also, we're going to be having in a few moments cities bombed, mass migration of people coming from these war-torn cities into the country. I'm going to be referring to my notes quite a bit, and I hope it doesn't distract you, but I've got a lot to cover, and I'm going to do it quickly so I don't take up a lot of your time. But I do find this very interesting. You would think because you're in the country that you're going to have it a lot better than everybody else. But there's going to be forces acting upon those farms that we could never have imagined. There's going to be the Ministry of Food. They are going to be the group that monitors everything that comes off of the farm. They're going to watch the food leaving it. And the Ministry of Agriculture, they're going to come in and tell you what you're going to grow on your farm. Okay? You're going to have the Home Guard coming in. You're going to find out that most of the food that was being raised, their agriculture was in such a depression after World War I because we flooded their markets with our cheap cereal grains. So they weren't growing food any longer. They were just feeding their animals and living off of their meat and their dairy products. That's all going to change here in a second. For example, the pig club. That's an interesting concept. What would happen is you and your neighbor would go in on a pig and you would save your food scraps and feed the pig. But when it came time to butcher that pig, a police officer had to be there. And he was going to take half of that pig for, again, the war effort. So even though you raised the pig with your neighbor, you're only going to get a quarter of that pig and your neighbor's going to get a quarter of that pig. Any arguments? The police officer is going to take the whole thing. The War Acts. Unbelievable. The Ministry of Agriculture. Let me tell you what they were able to do. They took 2,700 farms away from the farmer. Almost 3,000 farms. 10,000 farmers will lose part of their farms. Okay? Why? If you were a farmer, you were giving a national survey, and they would rate you an A farmer, B farmer, or C farmer. And if you were a C farmer, this is what could happen. 2,700 farmers will lose their farm during the war years. 10,000 farmers will lose part of their farm. And guess what? They never got them back. You had a war ag inspector. This is the guy that rated you. He would tell you what to grow and how well you were growing it. He was the one that could confiscate your farm. He's the one that could take part of your farm. You were encouraged to raise chickens, and you were encouraged to raise rabbits. Rabbits are incredible. One rabbit has at least 12 young in a year, or 45 pounds of meat. They were quick to grow. They serviced on low-quality food and converted it quickly into meat. If you bred a large rabbit with another large rabbit, more than likely it was going to have large offspring. 3 to 4 months, the rabbits can be butchered. You're also going to need fish quite a bit, and you're going to have your gardens growing.